Well, good day to you. It is July the 19th, 2025. I hope wherever you are, whenever you're listening to this video, you're having a great day. My name is Gary Willing, and I want to welcome everyone to Search for Signs. I also want to do two things before I get going. First, I want to encourage anyone and everyone to do some research and look into this information if you're starting to think that there might be something to this. Whether you believe it or not doesn't really matter, but I'm encouraging you to look into this to see if it's true for you. Investigate it for yourself. Get some background information. Check out some information on some websites that I provided links for in the description portion of these videos to get really good background information about what I talk about here. Might I suggest checking out the Share International site. Link is at the very top of the link heap on the description portion. But there are other links that take you to other websites or other YouTube channels, and they all give you really good background information about what I talk about here. So hopefully you'll check it out because it's all free. The other thing that I want to encourage everyone and anyone to do is to join the discussion. Post a comment. Let me know what you think. If you have a question you want to ask me, post your question in the comment section. Then I'll try to answer it in the next video. Or if there's something you want to talk about in relation to this story, email me, searchforsigns@mail.com. Okie dokie. Now, like I said, it's July 19th, 2025. And why am I repeating that date? Well, you might not know this, but there is something that was very historically significant that happened 48 years ago today. And I was alive at that time, and I can tell you, I didn't hear about it then. It took me years before I knew just how significant that day was. But I was about to start kindergarten. I was a few weeks to kindergarten, and I do remember that time of starting my first day of school and all that kind of thing. I remember that day. I also remember the first time I ever saw Star Wars, because that came into the theaters for the first time in '77. I do remember that. I remember my dad reading the scrolling at the beginning of the movie, because I couldn't read at that time. But I remember those two things, but I do not remember what I was doing, where I was on July 19th, 1977. So, what happened then? Well, what was extraordinary was the one awaited by all the world's religions fulfilled his promise and came into the everyday world of that day. There was no fanfare, there was no press, there was no announcement. He didn't announce it even. He slipped into our lives. He did exactly what he said he would do in the Bible. He came like a thief in the night in an hour when we least expect it. So, he was living for eons in the Himalayas, 17,500 feet up in the mountains, far away from the view of humanity, along with these other masters, for like I said, for eons. But they knew at some point they would have to come back and retrace their steps and come into the everyday world. And in the mid-70s, 5 masters left their ancient retreats and went into 5 different cities. The first one went into New York. The second one came into London, apart from Maitreya. The third one went into Geneva. The fourth one went into Darjeeling. And the 5th one came into Tokyo. And then not long after that, 2 more masters entered some major cities. One went into Rome and one went into Moscow. And according to Benjamin Creme, the most famous of all the masters right now is the master who is Jesus. And he was the one that went into Rome in the 70s and has been living in the outskirts of Rome ever since. And then on July 19th, 1977, like I was saying, Maitreya entered London. Now, any one of these masters are not only masters of their own divinity, masters of love, masters of wisdom, and the ageless wisdom, and that kind of thing, but they're also masters over time and space, and they can think themselves from point A to point B in a millisecond. But Maitreya chose to ride in a plane from Asia to London, and on that day, that's when he arrived. And the reason why he did that was because he wanted to fulfill the man-made prediction that the Christ came back into the world through the clouds. Like I said, he could have done it the way that the Christians were expecting, but that would sure frighten everybody. Everybody would have known what would happen on July. They would remember where they were on July 19th, 1977 when that happened. But Maitreya came very simply, very humbly, and entered our lives in that way. Since then, we're living in a totally different world than we're living even to this day. To this day than we were back then. We're changed. Technologically, we've changed. There's been a lot of history since then. There's been a lot of good and a lot of bad. There's been, we seem more divided than we were even then. And what's causing all this? Well, this has been predicted even back in the Bible. When Jesus said, I come not to bring peace, but to bring a sword, to set father against son, mother against daughter, brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor. It's the sword of cleavage that we're seeing, which is evidence of the teacher already here. We're also seeing more and more people march for peace, march for justice, march for the environment, and those kind of things. And this is what Ben's master meant in the article, Maitreya's Mission, where he said, it's not long until the world will see the Christ. Despite appearances, his mission is proceeding well, and many are the changes which his presence has invoked. That's what I was trying to say. Many are the changes which his presence has invoked. There are those who doubt his presence in the world. This is natural. Only when his face is seen will the doubters believe. Thus has it always been. Alrighty. Now, since then, since he's arrived in London, like I said, the world has changed. We're in a different place. But he's been working behind the scenes to create the climate to where we'll hear what he has to say and listen to what he has to say and want the changes for the world that he's going to be advocating. The need for peace, the need to end war forever, the need to feed the hungry in the world, the need to save our environment and those kind of things, which he'll be talking about more and more with us and how to do those things. But he's been talking to some world leaders. Most notably, he talked with the former Chancellor of Germany, the late Willy Brandt. And he encouraged him to seek out other economists, but not of like mind, but a very different type of mind. So he seeked out a extreme capitalist, extreme communist, extreme socialist, extreme right-winger, extreme left-wingers, and so forth. And he was encouraged to do that, and also to try to create a consensus that they could come up with really an economic blueprint for the principle of sharing that an economist would understand. And that's what happened. That's what he did. It's quite extraordinary. And most people don't know that happened, but that was something that's going to lead us down the right way and the right path in the future and that kind of thing. Also, he and some of these other masters have flooded the world with many miracle signs. You know, at the beginning of each video and at the end of each video are images of these miracle signs, like the crosses of light, weeping icons, the Hindu milk miracle, images of the Madonna, and so forth. People being saved from an accident by an angel or touched by an angel in some kind of way, or healed or helped or something to that effect. There's also been more and more UFO sightings, more than there were ever been prior to 1977. To where if you're paying attention to the miracles out there, you can't help but go, something strange is happening. You might not really know what they mean, you might not believe them perhaps, but you can't deny it the way that you could. You really can't. And then we've also seen extraordinary changes over the last 48 years, like the ending of the Cold War, which was something that was predicted by most people to never end back in the 80s, and that's ended. The release of Nelson Mandela and the ending of apartheid was another miracle that happened during that time. And there have been others, but for the most part, this is what we can talk about, right? But the other thing, too, I'm going to talk about one of the other things that is really starting to see some of the changes by Maitreya's presence. But the thing that I wanted to also talk about before I get into that was I've known this information for a little over 30 years, since 93 is when I first read about Maitreya in one of Ben's books. I didn't believe it at first. It took me months to get around to where it started to have the ring of truth, and it took me just reading more about it to kind of come to that conclusion for myself. Once I did, I had an expectation of when I would see Maitreya on TV and recognize him. I had an expectation of when he would declare himself before the world on the day of declaration. I had an expectation of when I would start to see these changes that I was welcoming and hoping for to happen, like peace in the world and that kind of thing. The ending of hunger and that kind of stuff. And it was about 6 months to a year from when I first heard about it. That seemed pretty realistic at the time. Now looking back, it probably wasn't that realistic because it's been almost 30 years and still we're in the same boat that we've been in, even then. But so I'm going to ask you, for those people who've heard this information for years, what was your expectation of when you would see Maitreya and recognize Maitreya and these changes would start to happen? How long was it for you? Like I said, for me, it was 6 months to a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years on the outset. Well, that's definitely come and gone in my case, right? Maybe yours is a little longer, maybe yours was a little shorter, right? People ask me all the time, is it going to be this year? And I can only tell them, I don't know, when it's going to be, when we'll see and recognize them on TV. You might have already seen them on TV and just not recognized them yet. I can't say that you have or you haven't, but that was one question I wanted to ask. And then the other question I want to ask you is, for those of us who have heard this information for years, the last time the masters came back into the everyday world after being away from humanity for eons, how long did it take? Do you have an answer to that? Well, I have an answer to that one. This has never happened before. So we really don't know how much longer it's going to be. It might be another 10 years from now. It might be another 50 years from now. I'm not trying to depress people, but I don't know how long it's going to be. I don't think it's going to take that long. And then I'm going to talk about a little bit more of the hopeful side of this, this information and the coming of Maitreya and that kind of thing. So those are the things that I've been thinking about over the months and years that I've known about this information. Was maybe my expectations were just a wee bit unrealistic. Because I don't know, just as you don't know, really, the laws that these masters have to work with in relation to humanity. And one of the big laws is free will. They never infringe anybody's free will, even if it means that things would move along just a little bit faster. They can't do it. It's sacred to them. So that's why it's just taking a lot longer than most people, such as myself, would think, to see these changes in the world. But I'm starting to see them, and this is what's giving me hope. So before I talk about that, I want to segue into a joke. It's a dad joke, but it's coming from Ronald Reagan, who was president around the time that most of Maitreya's early part of his time in London was president. And he was a pretty funny president. He had some jokes that I thought were pretty funny. I didn't agree with his policies for the most part, but he did have some funny jokes, and this was one of them. So there were some parents of two kids. One was an optimist. They could not get the kid to not think the world was just rosy, and the other one was always depressed because he was a pessimist about everything. So they went to this psychiatrist for answers on how to relate and how to help these kids. So the psychiatrist said, why don't we do this? We'll have two rooms, one for the pessimist and one for the optimist. For the pessimist, we're going to find all the toys that he's ever wanted, and we're going to go to this toy store, we're going to buy him, and we're going to put him in the room so he can go into the room and see all the toys he's ever wanted and see what his reaction is. Okay, what are we going to do with the optimist? Well, we're going to go to a farm and we're going to get all the horse poop we can get, and we're going to make this big pile of horse poop. So he's just going to be sitting in a room with horse shit. That's what he's going to be doing. And then we'll see how he reacts, see if he's still optimistic. Okay, so they did that. They put the pessimist in with the toys and the optimist in with the horse shit. They wait about an hour, and then they go in to see what their results are. And they go into the room with the pessimist, and he's crying. And like, why are you crying? You got all these toys. Well, somebody's going to take them away eventually. Well, that didn't work. Okay, so let's see what the optimist is doing. So they go into the room with the optimist, and he is digging for all it's worth into this horseshit. The whole room just smells like horseshit. There's horseshit all over the walls. He's all covered in it, and he's just digging away, and it's just flying everywhere. They say, whoa, 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 stop. What are you doing? And he goes, there's got to be a horse in here somewhere. I don't know. I thought it was a funny joke, but it really goes to show you if you're an optimist, you can pretty much see the good in everything. So maybe that's me. But what I wanted to say was about the expectation of when Maitreya is going to come and back into the everyday world. He's already back in the everyday world, but how unexpected it's going to be and how it's going to really transform and revolutionize all our lives and really be disruptive in our lives for a large extent. But also the sign that I think that this is soon. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about is a personal experience I had. It wasn't a Maitreya experience, but it was a personal experience that I had that's kind of leading me to believe that it's soon. And it also is making me wonder about the day that I see him and recognize him on TV. What is it going to be like? Okay, so a couple years ago, I went to work on a Saturday like I normally do, and I went and worked the whole day. I was expecting to go home and do nothing when I got home, or just chill out, or maybe go out to eat or whatever like this. And I get home and I'm just tired and exhausted. And my wife asked me, she goes, are we going to go to the birthday celebration for Smyrna? I live in Smyrna, Georgia, and every year they have a birthday celebration. So she goes, are we going to go? And I said, no. She goes, why not? I want to go. And I said, just not feeling it, baby. I'm tired. I don't want to be around all those people. And, it's pretty much boring for me anyway. And then she said something that really perked me up. She goes, there's this group, I think it's called Train. I think they're called Train they're playing. And I said, baby, there's no way Train. I don't know if you know the pop group Train from the 2000s. I mean, they were big back then. I said, there's no way they're playing for Smyrna's birthday celebration. It's got to be Train Whistle or Train Wreck or Train Track or something. It can't just be the group Train. And she goes, no, it's the group Train. I saw it on their Facebook site. I said, let me see it. So I went on Facebook and I looked, and sure as a world, the group that I had loved and wore out the CD player listening to their music, was coming to my hometown that day. So I was not expecting that. And I was like, yeah, we're going. She goes, I thought you just said you were too tired. I said, not anymore. So we're going. So a few hours after I had found out that they were coming to my town to put on a concert, I'm half a mile down the street from my house, on the street that I drive every single day because they shut down the street and they put the stage up, and I'm listening to one of my all-time favorite bands playing some of my all-time favorite music. And it was just like, I was blown away by the fact that I'm listening to a concert from Train. I'm listening to them for free, but more importantly is my day started and ended totally different than what I was expecting. And then I started to think about Maitreya, and I was like, that's what it's going to be like. The day that I finally see him on TV and recognize him on TV, it's going to be just like that. So, anyway, I just wanted to share that with you because I think that's going to be our experience for those people who have heard this information and have known about it for years, hoping one day they'll see Maitreya, don't know whether it's true or not, and when they finally do see Maitreya, they're going to go, oh my gosh, Ben was right all along. Let me hear what he has to say. And then they're going to be having a hard time going to sleep that night because they're going to be like, I was not expecting today to be like today, And I'm seeing this in my life quite a bit here lately, where I just can't rely on tomorrow being the exact same as what I was thinking today was going to be, or next week to be more of the same. It might be, but I can't expect it. Even geopolitically, when I watch the news, things are coming up so quickly and so fast and so randomly that, there's times that I just don't know. You can't say, well, next week we're going to do X. It's just something totally different. Do you see what I'm saying? Maybe you've had that same experience, maybe not. It just keeps coming up and more and more and more. It's just unexpected. And if I was somebody who was scared about the future, I'd be even more scared, for sure, right? Because I'd be like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? This is it. This is the end of the world, the kind of thing. But if you're that kid digging in that big pile of shit, you're going to see that horse in there somewhere eventually, right? That's more me, right? And I'm thinking that this might be the sign that I was looking for, that it's soon, very, very soon, until we see and recognize Maitreya on TV. I'm just thinking it's very, very, very soon. It might not be tomorrow, it might not be next week, it might not be next year. I don't know, I can't tell you, but I'm thinking it's really, 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 really soon when the day for me personally, when I wake up thinking it's going to be one way, and then at the end of the day, I have already seen Maitreya on TV for the first time and going, oh my God, that's him. Just saying. And then the other thing too is, I've had a lot of personal experiences with Maitreya. I've seen these many miracle signs like the crosses of light. I've even seen UFOs, right? And I wouldn't trade any amount of money for those experiences. They mean that much to me. I really would not trade any amount of money for those experiences. But the thing that I would trade every one of those experiences for is seeing on the news one more time millions of people marching for peace like they've been doing all over the world. Just one more time. And it's happening more and more and more. Watch the news. Look at it. I'm telling you, people are marching all over the world for stuff. They're marching out against the Trump administration or mass deportations. They're marching in Europe for whatever. They're marching in Iran, in China. There have been people who have even marched against what Putin was doing in Ukraine. There's millions of people in Russia that are marching for peace. They want peace. And the thing that's so unexpected that really has changed my view on the world, really, I got to be honest with you, and I do think it's a sign that we are ready to hear what Maitreya has to say and do something about it, was when I realized that these MAGA people are wanting the same thing that I'm wanting. And it happened from something that was unexpected too. It was when the United States sent missiles into Iran. And I was expecting the MAGA people that had been supporting Trump to go right along with it. No, 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 no. They were very much against him doing that. And I'm sure he wasn't expecting that response either. And it's opened my eyes to the possibility that might be divided, but we're really not that divided. That at our core, we all want the same thing. We want a future for ourselves. Really. And that's what I'm starting to see. That's what was so unexpected, but it's given me so much joy and so much hope. I'm telling you, this is the sign. I would give, like I said, I would give all my experiences away in a heartbeat for that, just to see that again. To see people marching for peace, to see people, to have that experience of oneness, to have that experience of people longing for peace. It's proving what Ben's master had been saying for decades. Humanity, we all want peace at the heart of us. We all want joy. We all want a future for ourselves and our family. We all just want it differently. And that's where Maitreya is going to unite and synthesize all those desperate voices into one voice that no political leader can withstand the voice of the people. It's like a contagion, as Ben's master said. The voice of the people is like a contagion. It's rising. And we're seeing it. And we'll see more and more of it. And I do think that the process of the emergence of the teacher into the everyday world, this is a absolute crucial last step in order for us to recognize Maitreya on TV. And that is the masses of the people marching for peace, marching for justice, marching for the environment, and those kind of things. And I just want to leave the conversation with this, because I do think it is soon, very soon, until we see Maitreya on TV. I do. I really do believe that. It might be a little longer than that. I'm always leaving that out there as a possibility, but I'm just telling you, I do think it's soon. But some years ago, I was lucky enough when I went to the conference in San Francisco, the Share International Conference in San Francisco. They were setting up this projector, and I was like, what's going on? They're saying, oh, we're going to watch a YouTube. Somebody said, sitting next to me, we're watching a YouTube video. And they didn't really know what it was about. And I didn't know what it was about either. I thought it was about, I don't know. So I asked a couple people, they didn't really know, because I'm always the last to know anything in groups. Anyway, so we're sitting there, and they turn on the projector, and it's I didn't even know what YouTube was. It was actually a YouTube channel. And I had to go home and search for YouTube. That's how I didn't know. This is how long ago this was. But YouTube had just started out. People were just starting to upload videos of YouTube. And this was one of the videos that was uploaded. And it was of this peace march in London in around 2004-ish, 2005, I think it was, right when the United States and their allies were going to go into Iraq and attack Iraq. And the people in London and England were starting to, and even in the United States, were starting to march against that. And this was a peace rally. And then there was two people that they focused in on, and they started this. Whoever was doing the interview was starting to talk to them. Well, as soon as he opened his mouth, I knew it was Maitreya. He didn't claim to be Maitreya. I knew it. I could tell right then it was him, because of his energy, because of his love, because of what he was saying and how he was saying it. And the thing that he said 20 some odd years ago is the experience that I'm having when I'm seeing these movements and these marches all over the world. He said, this brings me so much joy. I can't remember how he said it, but he said something like that. It brings me so much joy to see these millions of young kids marching against the lies of the Bush administration and Tony Blair, is what he said. And he goes, I wouldn't trade it for £1 million, is what he said. And he had so much joy and so much love in what he was saying. He didn't say much, but I could tell by what he was saying, this was Maitreya. And then he said something that has changed my life. He quoted Bertrand Russell. He said, as Bertrand Russell said, keep your eyes on the prize, and the prize is humanity. So during these difficult times, during these times of turmoil, during all these times of uncertainty, do what Maitreya said. Keep your eyes on the prize, and the prize is humanity. It's not much longer, I tell you that. He is here. speaking to humanity, already on our media. You just have to look and you will see him. And when you see him, you will know that that is him. There is no questioning if that's him or not. When I saw him on TV, when I saw him in that video, I knew instantly it was him. And it changed my life. Just that one time I saw him on that YouTube video so many years ago has changed my life. And I know it will change all of ours. I love you guys very much. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I look forward to talking to you again in the very near future. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.